Identity Insights by Indicio. I'm your host, Tim Spring, and today I'm joined by Indicio CTO Ken Ebert. And he's here to discuss implementing Indicio Proven and how you don't want a platform solution, you really want control over your data. Thank you for joining me today, Ken. Would you mind starting us off with a brief introduction about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ken Ebert. I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Indicio. I've been involved in the decentralized identity community for quite some time now, and worked on some of the specifications that got verifiable credentials going, the verifiable credentials data model specification and the DID specifications at the W3C. Also have been involved in other projects to help implement standards and also produce code that actually gets these things into production. It's been a fun and exciting journey. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. We'll really appreciate you talking to us today and bringing your wealth of expertise because obviously you've done quite a bit in the space. So I'm curious, right? Obviously, platform solutions are kind of everywhere right now. So I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about why you would want a platform solution and why Proven is not a platform solution, and
Well,
kind of the pros and cons there.
I can tell you why from a developer's point of view, the developer of the platform, it's easier because you have control over the entire platform. They stand up one instance of the platform in a multi-tenanted environment typically and allow people to use their platform. This is really convenient from that developer's perspective because they only have one thing to deal with. However, in the real world, platform solutions don't always provide the ideal solution. So the platform is often difficult to deploy on premise. Some governments, some large organizations prefer that their software be hosted by the company themselves rather than by the developer. And that makes it a little bit more difficult for them to engage with that type of a solution. Um, the DCO solution is a little different from that because we've taken the tact of creating all the components for a complete ecosystem, everything you need from the beginning to a very advanced deployment. But it's done in a way that is componentized so that you can pick and choose which components to use and how many of each to use and configure it to suit your own particular use case. And that allows for on-site deployment, or it could be hosted in the cloud, or that we could host it for you. But it gives you the flexibility to choose the mechanism that you want for deployment model and for which components are involved in the system. We didn't choose this to make it easier for ourselves. We chose this to make it easier for the customers and the people who are actually going to be using the system so that it can match their needs exactly. And that allows for a much more flexible approach.
I could definitely see the benefits there, particularly right when it comes to governments and needing to really know who's in control of that data. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about basically adopting the technology, right? With a platform solution, you just kind of sign on and you can use it and go. How does it work with Proven in terms of, if you wanted to integrate it into your system?
A typical integration into a system involves all of the components of a system. There's a source of data. So in a typical decentralized ecosystem, there's an issuer of a credential, there's a holder of the credential, and there's a verifier of the credential. Those are the basic three pieces of software or agents that represent the different parties to create a credential, to hold it in their wallet, and then present it to somebody who needs to verify it. There are other auxiliary pieces to make the whole thing work as well. And each of those components is part of an ecosystem. So figuring out where your data comes from, that's the first part. That's an issuer agent. Issuer agents can be set up using Proven quite simply. You deploy a Docker container that has the agent in it, and then you can start using it. You can use the console to issue credentials using a UI, a web UI to a holder agent. You can also integrate with APIs. And API integration is the more towards production typically, but the console method allows you to test and get going really quickly before you even integrate a single API. You can hand enter the data and issue a credential that way. So that gets you started with an issuer agent. The next component in the ecosystem is a holder agent. Holders can be any type of entity, really. It could be a government, it could be a business, it could be a person, an IoT device. In most ecosystems, it's people. People are the holder agents. They hold the driver's licenses, they hold the passports, they hold other credentials about themselves typically. And we have a white labelable holder agent called Holder Plus that allows for quick testing purposes, or it can be white labeled to be the organization's wallet that they give to their um, end customers or um, students or employees or uh, um, citizens, and they can use that wallet as is with a change of label to make it their own. But it also allows for very quick testing purposes because it already exists. It's in the App Store, and you can simply download it to your Android or iOS device and get started. Once you've got those two agents, you have the issuer and the holder. You can issue a credential that's already configured into the issuer agent, or you can start creating your own. But very simply, you can get started with a credential type that's already defined, issue a credential to the holder. The holder has it in their wallet. The stuff's all working and tested. And you've done the first leg of the journey. The credential's been issued. The next phase is to take a credential and use it somewhere to get it verified. And in many organizations, they start with the issuer and the verifier being the same organization. It's the bank. They issued a bank account credential and you use the bank account credential to log back into the bank's website. So the issuer is the bank, the verifier is the bank. So that same agent can be used for test purposes to try out how does verification work. It can be done quite simply with a website to verify, or you can look inside using a console again to look at what data is actually being passed in the initial stages. In a deployment of a system, typically, the verifier agent needs to be integrated with some function of the real world application of the government or business that's verifying it. For a bank, it might be providing access to your bank account. And through simple API integration, you can display a QR code to connect between the holder and the verifier agent. You can request a credential to be verified and then verify it with the user's consent. And then now you've satisfied the whole functionality. Underlying that, there's a couple of other bits of technology that are involved. With mobile agents, they don't have fixed endpoints, so they need a mediator agent to help them communicate when they're offline, or because they don't have a fixed IP address that gives a place for people who want to contact them, like the issuer agent or the verifier agent, a place to send messages, and that allows for that to occur. We stand up a mediator agent with the ecosystem. There's a general one available for testing that scales quite well, but you can have your own instance of a mediator agent also if you want. Two more pieces to make the whole thing happy and complete functionality. That's a ledger to record the decentralized identifier information, the DID doc for an issuer, the schemas that are in play, the keys that are going to be used to sign the credentials. Those are recorded in an immutable way on a ledger. No PII ever goes on the ledger, just those keys that are used to create and sign the credential. But that ledger, we offer a production network, a mainnet, a demo net for stable solutions that are pre-production, and a test net for those who are still experimenting to try to figure out how their solution should work. Those networks allow for the recording of that type of information. We offer those networks. You can stand up your own. We can help you stand up a network. But the easiest way is to get started with testnet, play around with it, find out how things work, then roll your stable solution into DemoNet for demos to customers or within the company or government, and then roll it into production and on the mainnet. Another real critical part of the complete ecosystem is governance. It says who are the trusted issuers in this particular ecosystem, and how do you know that it's not somebody forging a credential, it's not a scam artist, and that governance helps make the whole system secure and trustworthy. And we provide, along with the proven system, an editor for taking the policies that are human readable, written policies of who's trusted and who's not, and creating a governance file that describes that to the agents, the software agents, so they can act upon it in a machine actionable type of way, make decisions about who to trust or not trust. Those are the main components that are involved, and they are all like little Lego blocks, for want of a better description, and they can be plugged together in whatever configuration needs to happen to make your ecosystem complete. And some participants of an ecosystem only need a verifier agent. Fine, just deploy one of those. If you need the whole thing, everything's there as well. So that set of components that provides all that functionality is the key to success.
Awesome. So you just said quite a bit there, and I have a couple questions. The first is back to that final piece, the governance piece. You mentioned that it really helps fight fraud and bad actors from impersonating or issuing their own credentials or whatever. I know that that has been a topic that we've covered recently, but is still somewhat confusing to some. Could you go into a bit more detail on how that actually stops fraud? Credentials that shouldn't be there, that kind of thing.
The governance file is produced and published by the whoever's running that smaller ecosystem, and they determine by which DIDs or decentralized identifiers are authorized to issue which types of credentials. That's the most basic form of the decentralized ecosystem governance. They might have a list of five issuers of a certain type of credential, or just one, or however complicated it needs to be. And for each credential type, they say who are the trusted parties that produce that type of credential. They put that in using an editor given with the proven agent. It allows them to create that governance file and sign and publish it. Signing it says, here's the rules. But if anybody can put out the rules, how do you know which rules to use? So the rules that you want to use in your ecosystem would be provided by the host of that ecosystem, and they say, here are the parties that we trust. Can other interactions still occur? Yes. You could still present your credentials to a fraudster if you wanted to. You could still have people creating fraudulent credentials. The thing is that the government's governance file will let the verifiers know that fraudulent credential from an untrusted source isn't trusted in our ecosystem. It's still there. Somebody could still try to present it, but it would be detected. And that's the point of it. You can't control who creates the credentials because it's a decentralized system, but you can control who you trust and whether or not those credentials will be accepted and used to gain access to a system or to receive a discount or whatever the credential is for, whether it's accessing an employee's records at a company or your bank account, or proving that you're an accepted person for crossing a border. Any of those types of credentials can be in play, but the verifiers can know which ones to trust and which ones not to trust.
All right. I think that's a very, very good explanation. I appreciate the quick and simple how that really works there. So to sum up, how to actually get started with Proven, there are six major components, correct? You've got the issuer, the verifier, the holder, governance, the network.
The
What's the
mediator.
sixth one? The mediator. Thank you. I was doing so well right up until then. So I know Indicio is a real proponent of starting simply to really test it all out and then moving on to bigger and bigger use cases and more implementations. How would you suggest most companies get started with either these pieces or whatever they need, or the full system?
The system is fully functional and works. If they wanted to go right into production, they could quickly do that. You just sign your license agreement, get your components, put them where they need to be, call the APIs to control them, deploy either the generic app Holder Plus or a white labeled version of that in your app store, and you're ready to go into production. If you're a little more timid and want to try it out, you use the same components and just don't make it widely public, and just experiment with it internally until you gain the confidence or the correct documentation to roll it out to your customers. We provide trainings as well to help people get understanding with the Indicio Academy of how all the decentralized identity works, and then specifically how the proven components work so that you can quickly and efficiently integrate them.
So if someone wanted to get started, as soon as possible, would you be able to put a timeline on getting a full system up and running?
Uh, the Like I said, the whole system is functional. Having a system up and running and issuing a credential, um, you'll probably take more time um, getting the approvals inside your company to set it up and signing the license agreement than you will in actually getting it to run, because the functionality is all there. You might need a little bit more time if you're going to create your own new type of credential. You'll spend again more time defining what's in your schema, what goes in your credential, and how you're going to use it in your use case, than you will actually deploying it to the network and getting started with the issuer. The APIs are fairly simple. There's about five that you really need to use in order to connect, issue, uh, and present and verify a credential. So there's not a it's not super complex. It's fairly straightforward. We also have a mobile SDK if you don't want to use our own um, created app and you want to integrate this into your existing app. There's a mobile SDK that allows you to incorporate the decentralized wallet and API functionality directly into your mobile app. That makes it for a more seamless and better experience for um, a company's end customers. So that's an option as well. That takes a little bit more time because you have to integrate a new SDK into an app and provide the UI screens to um, interact with it. But that's again fairly straightforward. I think it took um, uh, one customer took about to do that SDK integration. It took them about 3 weeks to get trained, receive the documentation, and figure out what they were going to do, and actually integrate and deploy their first solution with that integration already complete. So it's not a complex process there either. If you have a development team that writes your apps, they should be able to incorporate the mobile SDK to make it for a very seamless experience for the end user.
All right. Wow. No, 3 weeks between training and actually implementing sounds like a pretty good time to me. Um, awesome. Well, that is about our time for today, Ken. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights in platforms and how to really integrate proven in a simple and clean way. If you at home are interested in learning a bit more about verifiable credential technology, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to bring you some more educational content. And if you have any questions about the space or specific topics that you'd like for us to cover, please go ahead and leave a comment below and we'll be sure to read and address them. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Tim.